The NFL is a league of dreams, but it is also a graveyard of careers. It's a place where the difference between a golden ticket and a silent exit is measured in inches, split seconds, and the brutal reality of a depth chart. Just yesterday, the atmosphere in Philadelphia shifted. A player who was supposed to be a cornerstone of a new defensive vision simply walked away. But this isn't just about one man hanging up his cleats. It's about a pattern, a desperate, calculated scramble to assemble a masterpiece from the scraps of other teams' failed projects. Why are veteran players retiring before the first snap of the season? And why does the front office seem to be playing a high-stakes game of musical chairs with names that were once top-tier draft prospects? Something is happening in the shadows of the locker room. And as the summer heat rises, the true cost of this rebuild is starting to reveal itself. The silence from Joe Tryon-Shoyinka during the spring wasn't just a brief absence. It was the prologue to a shock retirement that has sent ripples through the organization. Once heralded as a first-round savior, his decision to step away is a heavy blow, not just to the depth chart, but to the very philosophy of player acquisition currently being tested in Philadelphia. But this is where the story gets twisted. While one door closes, another is kicked open, as the front office scrambles to fill the void with a relentless intensity that suggests they know something the rest of us are only just beginning to suspect. The pressure is mounting. The expectations are suffocating. And with every roster move, the question becomes clearer. Is this a team building for greatness, or are they patching holes in a ship that is already taking on water? To understand the weight of this moment, you have to look at the profile of the player who just walked away. At 6'5" and nearly 260 pounds, Tryon-Shoyinka was built in a lab for the modern pass rusher. He carried the pedigree of a first-round pick, the physical gifts that scouts dream about, and the raw potential to be the next terrifying force off the edge. But in the NFL, potential is a currency that devalues quickly if it isn't backed by production. When the team inked him to that one-year, low-risk veteran deal, the expectation wasn't that he would be a savior. It was that he would be a reclamation project, a diamond in the rough waiting to be polished by a defensive staff hungry for versatility. For weeks, the silence was deafening. He wasn't at the OTAs. He wasn't at mandatory minicamp. The coaching staff kept their cards close to their chest, but the writing was on the wall for anyone paying attention to the empty stall in the locker room. Now that the move to the reserve retired list is official, the reality is setting in. The gamble didn't pay off. But here is the burning question that every fan is whispering. If a former first-round pick in his late 20s decides that the game is no longer worth the toll, what does that say about the environment inside the building? It's a haunting thought, isn't it? That a man who has reached the pinnacle of the sport would decide to leave it all behind rather than fight for a spot in this specific rotation. Drop a name in the comments. Do you think this retirement is a sign of a deeper problem or just the harsh reality of a business that never sleeps? The departure of Tryon-Shoyinka leaves a massive, jagged hole in the rotation. But in the cold, calculated world of NFL general managers, there is no time for mourning. The response was immediate, aggressive, and undeniably intriguing. Enter Ezukanma. If the name sounds familiar, it's because he is the archetype of the player this front office seems obsessed with: high draft pedigree, untapped physical dominance, and a hunger to prove that the scouts were right about him in the first place. Ezukanma isn't just a guy. He's a statement. With 24 career sacks,
it really dictates the defense.
Him in the same draft conversation as some of the league's brightest stars, he is a different kind of weapon. He doesn't possess the coverage grace that the coaching staff might have hoped for in other pieces, but he brings a brand of violence that is sorely needed on the edge. He sets the edge against the run like a brick wall and has a motor that doesn't quit. Bringing him in isn't just a replacement move. It's a tactical shift. It signals a move away from the versatile hybrid, experiment, and back toward the old-school philosophy of pinning your ears back and hunting the quarterback. But is it enough? The list of edge rushers now populating the roster reads like a who's who of high-ceiling, low-floor gambles. You have the locks, the names that represent the foundation of the defense. But then you have the layer beneath, the players fighting for their lives to make the final cut. The depth here is being tested in real time, and the competition is so fierce that it's creating a level of intensity that could either forge a championship-level unit or tear the defensive chemistry apart before the season even begins. The story doesn't stop at the edge, though. The front office isn't just patching the defensive front. They are gutting and rebuilding the secondary with the same surgical precision. The signing of Shaun is a fascinating chapter in this unfolding saga. Here is a player who is a consensus All-American, a man who played at the highest level of college football, and who has been living the nomadic life of an NFL player ever since. He's been in Baltimore, New England, Las Vegas, and he even tested his mettle in the UFL. What the stats tell us, and they are staggering, is that when Wade was given a chance to prove his worth in the spring, he didn't just play, he dominated. He was the highest-graded defensive back in terms of coverage efficiency among a crowded field. He held opponents to near nothing, snatched interceptions out of the air, and played with a chip on his shoulder that you can't coach. When you look at the cornerbacks room, it's a logjam of talent. You have the stars, the locked-in starters, and the young bloods looking to make their mark. Wade is a wild card. He isn't walking into a guaranteed starting role. He is walking into a gladiator pit. But his familiarity with the defensive coaching staff, a recurring theme this season, could be his secret weapon. It suggests a philosophy of bringing in players who speak the same language as the coaches, players who can hit the ground running because they already know the system by heart. But wait until you hear how this secondary competition is actually impacting the morale of the young guys who have been here since day one. The pressure to perform isn't just about staying on the roster. It's about surviving the influx of new talent that the front office keeps funneling through the door. The narrative of this offseason has been one of constant, relentless motion. Just when you think you've got a handle on the roster, a new name appears on the transaction wire. And if you think the defensive side of the ball is the only place seeing this turbulence, look at the offensive roster. The team also brought in Erik Ezukanma, a wide receiver whose story is just as compelling as those on the other side of the ball. He's a former fourth-round pick out of Texas Tech, a guy with a wingspan that turns heads and the kind of verticality that makes defensive coordinators lose sleep. He's been through the ringer from the Dolphins to the Jaguars practice squad, and then back to the grind of the spring leagues. He's a survivor, and like Wade, he carries the weight of a coaching connection, an overlap with the current pass game coordinator that makes this more than just a random signing. It's a pattern that is impossible to ignore. Every move, every name, every transaction is tied together by a thread of familiarity and a desperate need to find the guy who can finally unlock the potential that hasn't been realized elsewhere. They are collecting players who have something to prove, men who are one bad season away from being forgotten, and they're putting them in an environment that demands perfection. The intensity is palpable. You can feel the weight of these decisions in the way the practice reports are written, the way the coaches talk about competition, and the way the fans are reacting on every platform. It is a high-octane environment where every snap, every drill, and every meeting carries the weight of 1,000 futures. But what does this all mean when the lights go on? History tells us that teams built on reclamation projects and late off-season shuffles are high variance. They either become the greatest story of the decade, or they implode under the weight of their own complexity. The fans, the observers, the skeptics, everyone is watching, waiting for the crack in the foundation. But maybe that's the point. Maybe the chaos is the strategy. By keeping everyone on their toes, by ensuring that no one is comfortable, and by constantly injecting new, hungry blood into the veins of the roster, the organization is trying to cultivate a culture of survival. You look at the sheer numbers. With a 90-man roster that is being tweaked daily, the room for error is zero. We aren't just talking about football anymore. We are talking about human ambition. We are talking about the drive that pushes a man to keep chasing a dream long after the world has told him that his time is up. There is a beauty in this struggle. There is a raw, unvarnished truth to the way this roster is being constructed. It's not flashy, and it isn't always pretty, but it is deeply, fundamentally human. And as we look toward the fall, the tension is only going to ramp up. The battles in the secondary, the scramble at the edge, the fight for the final wide receiver spots. These aren't just roster battles. They're the defining moments of these players' lives. And for the team, for the fans, and for everyone who has been following this journey, the journey is far from over. We are standing at the edge of something massive. Every single day, a new piece of the puzzle is added, a new question is raised, and a new mystery is born. Who will emerge from this forge of competition? Which of these discarded prospects will become the hero of the season? And what happens when the final cut is made, and the team that has been built through this relentless, chaotic, and fascinating process finally hits the field? The answers are coming. The season is fast approaching, and the stage is set for a climax that nobody, not even the most seasoned analyst, can fully predict. The ink on the roster is still wet, the story is still being written, and the drama is only just beginning. Stay locked in, because when the dust settles, we'll know exactly what this team is made of. The intensity is real, the stakes are sky high, and in the end, it's not just about the game, it's about the spirit of the fight. And that fight is happening right now, in the heart of the city, on the practice fields, and in the minds of the men who are giving everything they have for a chance to belong. The story of this season isn't going to be told in the wins and losses alone. It will be told in the names we don't know yet, the players who come out of nowhere to change the game, and the relentless, unyielding spirit of a team that refuses to settle for anything less than everything. It is a masterpiece of ambition, and we are just witnessing the first few strokes of the brush. Keep watching, keep guessing, and keep believing, because this is what the game is all about. The hunger, the grit, and the glory, it's all there, waiting for the first snap to reveal exactly what kind of legend this team is going to become. The silence of the summer is about to be shattered, and when it happens, we will be there to see it all unfold. But for now, the air is thick with anticipation. The mystery of the roster moves continues to linger, and the pressure on every single person in that building is higher than it has ever been. This isn't just a season. It's a testament to the endurance of the human spirit in the most unforgiving league on the planet. And the best part, we're just getting started.